Well, good afternoon. It's Tom Caminiti, the Tall Italian from Rock City Radio. I've got my fellow Italian, my paisano, on Zoom. It is Mr. Liberty DeVitto. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good. Bene, molto bene.
I don't know much Italian. I feel bad, but it's something I definitely want to pursue. My brother and his wife went to Italy and had a great time, and I haven't been there yet. I haven't been to the motherland yet, but I hope to get there one day.
I have family that's in Sicily. My mother's side is in Sicily. And before the pandemic, me and my wife were going every 2 years, say. And it's a beautiful, beautiful country, Italy. And you'll eat from the top of Italy down to the bottom into Sicily. And you'll find the best foods is in Sicily.
I'm ready to take it on. So, since we're talking about Italy right off the bat here, I'm like 84% Italian according to Ancestry DNA.
Okay.
I like to believe I'm 100%, but my ancestors are from Sicily, Naples, and Calabria. How about you?
Sicily and Naples.
All right. Hey.
Yeah. My mother always said that the Nobledans had the best singers, and Sicily had the best food.
I like the way your mother-in-law thinks there. That's for sure. Okay. Of course, you've got your book out, Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. If people haven't read it, they need to read it. It's a great, great read. Let's go back to the beginning. We kind of know each other, sort of. We've met a couple of times. I first met you originally back in the mid-90s during the Coconut Grove Art Festival. Magic 102.7 was putting on Felix Cavalieri there, and you were drumming for Felix that day. And I'll never forget meeting you because I went backstage. You were in a Winnebago, and we met. And then you go, here's a quarter. You'll never forget my name, by handing me that quarter, which of course said Liberty on it, right? I said, well, I already knew who you were, but you were drumming for Felix, and it was a great show. Now, Dino Danelli was one of the drummers that you idolized when you were kind of first getting into drumming. So how did that make you feel all of a sudden drumming for a band that you idolized?
Well, I always loved the Rascals. In the beginning, when I really got serious about the drums, it was when I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. But I couldn't really relate to the Beatles because, they were from England. They had a funny accent. They had straight hair. They could put it over their ears and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, this band comes out, and 3 out of the 4 of them are Italian.
Hey.
So I can relate immediately. And so I kind of was emulating Dino. Dino kind of took Ringo and just pushed him right off the drum stool and took his place for me. And it was the first time when I went to see the Rascals play live, it was the first time I saw that a drummer can be as much of a focal point as the lead singer is, because he was so animated and just a great drummer. And I got to meet them when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I talk about it in the book. It's a long story, but Dino was so nice to me. And he was so kind, and he taught me how to twirl the sticks. And
nice.
I did an interview with him, 2-part interview on Modern Drummer online. And at the end, I sit on his lap and I look at the camera and I go, I can't believe I'm sitting on Dino Danelli's lap.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, listen, even a person like you, you've got some idols and stuff that you've looked up to, and Dino was a beast on the drums. There's no doubt about it. Then we met again at the Chuck Berry Show, his 75th birthday party at Sunrise Musical Theater with his special guest, Little Richard, and you were drumming there as well. That had to be an incredible honor to play with Chuck Berry.
That was unbelievable. Chuck was just, I remember the first day we played with him. He came in, and his musical director was the bass player.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come in, and I asked the musical director, I said, what songs are we doing tonight? And he looked at me and said, Chuck Berry songs.
That really narrowed it down for you, didn't it?
Yeah. He said, when Chuck goes this way, that means start the song. When Chuck goes this way, that means stop.
So really, there's no like rehearsals prior to that or anything along those lines to know what the song list is going to be like?
No, but the great thing was that when I first got to the hall where we were playing, Little Richard was doing his sound check. He's up there playing the piano. And he keeps looking out in the crowd. I'm sitting in the middle of the audience. Nobody else is there except me and the other guys in the band. Sure. And he keeps looking at me. And then I see him talk to somebody that's on stage with him. And then he goes into the microphone and he looks at me again. And he goes, oh, you the drummer. You the good drummer.
You are the good drummer for sure, man. That's
And
wild.
Chuck Berry called me the listener. He said every time I would do something on the guitar, the next time it came around, you were right there with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So there were that was a great moment.
Yeah, it was his 75th birthday party. We'll never forget it. And I got a picture with him, courtesy of Jules and Kent Follett, who I know that you know Jules very well. And you met
Yes.
her at that show as well. And then all of a sudden, she's talking with you and showing you some of the pictures of some of the drummers that she's, had the honor of photographing. And you say, hey, and she mentioned something about maybe making a book about drummers. And you said it's never been done before. And then all of a sudden, Sticks and Skins comes out, and you had a big integral part in putting that together. Tell me how that kind of evolved.
Well, when she was thinking about it, she called me and she says, Liberty, I want to do a coffee table book about drummers. And I said, and she said, I need you to help me. And I said, first of all, I think you're insane trying to do it. But second of all, there's these two people you have to call. One was Joe Hibbs, who used to work for Mapex Drums, and unfortunately he passed away, and Dom Famularo, who is the global ambassador to drumming.
Wow.
And when the three of us got together, we told her what she needed to do. She followed directions perfectly and got this like 150 drummers in this book, which is insane.
It is amazing. She gave me a copy, autographed it and everything. And it's just, it's the who's who of drummers, that's for sure. All right, let's switch subjects here. So you're originally from New York. You're a proud New Yorker and stuff. I believe you spent the majority of your childhood in Long Island, correct?
Yes, I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And my father was a policeman in this area where I live now. It's called Clinton Hill.
Okay.
And Prospect Heights, all around here.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want us to grow up in Brooklyn, so he moved us out to Long Island, because Long Island in the 50s and 60s, that was the place to be. You know,
Nice.
everybody was leaving the city
Nice.
and going to the suburbs.
What part of Long Island are you from?
Seaford, Long Island.
Okay.
It's on the South Shore, and if you don't know where it is, it's wedged between Wantagh and Massapequa.
Okay, that kind of narrows it down. I'm originally from Long Beach, if you can believe that, way back in the day.
Oh.
And my parents had a beautiful house, two-story house with a basement and stuff. And needless to say, when we moved down here in the early 70s, they sold it for like 25G, and it's worth about, $1 million these days. But it was a really, really neat place to grow up.
Long Beach in the 60s was the place to be. If you had a band, you needed to play the Action House, the Mousetrap, the Leone's. There was so many clubs in Long Beach.
Do you remember Gino's Pizza that used to be kind of by the tracks or something, the subway? Or I don't remember. It wasn't the subway. It was the tracks. I can't remember exactly where it was, but that place stood out to me as far as food.
So many great places down there.
So, okay. So you talked earlier about you saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and that kind of basically changed your life. So just give me an idea of, a person that's never taken lessons, a person that's self-taught. How did that influence you, and why did you decide to pursue being a drummer? I think I know the answer, but go ahead and tell it anyway.
Well, I think the problem with someone who takes lessons, not everybody, but the problem is you become in a box. You get in a box because you're supposed to do it this way. This is how you're teaching how to do it. When you have to learn yourself, you think you're copying what's on the record, but you're really not hearing it the way as if you would look at it written out. And you start to develop your own thing. Like I can't do the Purdy shuffle, which is a big deal in the drum world.
Okay.
My dear friend Bernard Purdy came up with the shuffle that's on Steely Dan albums and stuff like that, and it's very popular. And then John Bonham copied it in "Fool in the Rain," and so did Jeff Porcaro in "Rosanna." That's that shuffle. Gotcha. I can't do it, but I do it a different way. And I actually played it for Bernard, and he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's your own now."
Kind of personalized it. I like that. Essentially though, like, how did you go about practicing? I mean, when did you first, how old were you when you saw the Beatles, and when did you really get into drumming, and how did you, what were you listening to that you started hearing, okay, that's how I want to be?
I always loved music, always loved it. I mean, even before I started playing drums, I loved Dion, the Four Seasons. I loved that. You know, I love the
Yeah.
song Romeo and Juliet,
By the
all those
reflections.
things.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, back then I was taking in so much music that I was learning subconsciously about arrangement and about there's a verse to a song and a chorus to a song and a bridge to a song, you know, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
the way they're put together. But as far as playing the drums, my dad bought me a set of drums, and I asked him why he did, because I didn't necessarily say I was into drums,
Right.
but he said because they didn't make Prozac when I was a kid, so he got me a set of drums. And I joined the sixth grade school band, and I couldn't do the buzz roll, you know, the Star Spangled Banner thing.
Yeah. Right.
Couldn't do it. And
Okay.
he said, "Put the sticks down, DeVitto. You'll never do anything with the drums."
Wow.
And so I got discouraged. So when the Beatles came on the Ed Sullivan Show, it was like I pointed at the screen and I said, "That's what I want to do. I want to play music with my friends. I can care less about the buzz roll."
Amen, brother. Amen. And of course, the women screaming at the Beatles probably had a little something to do with it as well, right?
That, you know, you can ask any guy that's in the music business why they started, and it's usually because of girls.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. Hey, you know, there's
Especially
nothing.
if you can't play sports. I was
Exactly.
terrible at sports.
Are you okay? Okay. No,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, man. Hey, listen, you know, musicians definitely attract the ladies, and good for you guys. Maybe I should have been a musician. I was a DJ, but never mind. We'll leave that alone.
Well, you're
S-
behind the scenes. You get a room by yourself. Ladies come by. You know, it's like I'm in front of thousands of people. What am I supposed to do with
I
them?
got you. No, that's too cool. Well, listen, so you're 18 years old, fresh out of high school, you just graduate, and
Yeah.
Mitch Ryder asked you to be his drummer for his tour. That's got to be mind blowing.
That was unbelievable and to learn from a Detroit rocker how to play Blue Eyed Soul in a
Mhm.
rock and roll feel
Right.
was really intense. I mean, those guys, it was after he left the Wheels, and I had played with the Wheels before I got the gig with Mitch,
Okay.
but it wasn't the real Wheels. I mean, only the bass player was part
Mhm.
of the Wheels. But playing with Mitch, he was so kind to me that he was the first name that I had to hang on to. When after that, when people said, when I would go for an audition with a band, they would say, like, "Who have you played with?" And I'd say, "Oh, I did this, I did that, I did this."
Mhm.
I remember telling Billy, you know, when I got to audition with Billy, he says, "Well, who else did you play with?" And I said, "Richie Supa, who was a local guy,
Yeah, I know
a
Richie.
couple of, yeah, made albums and stuff like that. Played with him." And Billy kind of knew who he was. And I said, "I played with the New Rock Workshop at my house. You know me from there because we used to see each other play."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And I played with Mitch Ryder. And it was like, "Wait, you played with Mitch Ryder?" I said,
Right.
"Yeah." He goes, "Okay, come on." You know,
It was like instant
but
credibility, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's too cool. All right. We've all been to so many concerts now. Before you, of course, were on the stage performing. What was your very first concert that you saw as a spectator?
Very first one, I went to see the Rascals at the Island Garden Arena. They were opening up for the Birds.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah,
That's a nice combo.
yeah, yeah. Mainly to see the Rascals, but I thought, wow, the Birds were really good too.
I
Yeah.
bet. I bet.
First time I first time I saw a band live.
that
Yeah.
really helped get you even more into, you know, in doing what you do as far as drumming and wanting to be on stage or not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When to see the reaction of a crowd when you play live, you know, you live for that after you start to get that. Once you get that, it's kind of like a curse. When the band when we play with Billy and you get that response from the crowd, you know, Billy always said that what makes us so good is that we play a song, the crowd responds. If it's a great crowd, the next song we play better. You know, you
That's
just,
awesome.
you know, and you lie in the front row with a bunch of girls, and you next thing you know.
I love the way you think, man. Yeah, you definitely feed off the crowd. I mean, and what I loved about Billy and you guys is that you didn't play the same set night after night after night. So I would imagine that would keep it fresher for you, correct?
Yes, yeah, change it up a bit. You know, do songs that are a bit of a challenge. You know, to do live.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I remember being in high school when Billy was first hitting it fairly big. And I remember some people in gym class just talking about, hey, Billy and the band are in town and they're going to play Gusman Center, and they're going to be in town for 7 nights in a row. I couldn't believe like any band would do 7 nights in a row, and I believe I have that correct. I could be wrong on that, but there was a big buzz about town. Now, I think Turnstiles was already out, and maybe The Stranger was just coming out at that point. And I know that once The Stranger came out, you guys just blew up and you guys were huge. So what was your kind of reaction to, you know, seeing the progression go on and just becoming more and more popular?
Well, I knew when it happened after The Stranger came out. You know, the Turnstiles tour, the album sold 50,000 copies. It was just enough a record sold to have Billy make the next album, which became The Stranger. But the next album was going to be Billy's either swan song, or this is going to be this is really going to take off. So The Stranger was very important to me. Sure. And I saw one night at the it was the Daughters of the American Revolution, the hall we played in Washington, D.C. And we came out after the show, and all these girls jumped on Billy. And he's so short, like he had to get on his toes to look at me in the crowd. And I said to myself, I said, this is it, man. We've done it. We've broken that barrier. And fortunately enough, he was a great enough songwriter that we continued the success for so long. You know.
I mean, listen, thank you guys for being, I've said this to you before, but thank you for being such a big part of the soundtrack of my life, because Billy and you and the entire band were my all-time favorite, and you still are. So thank you guys for doing that. I just love all the music. So if you don't mind, Liberty, give me an idea of what goes on with the creative process of putting together an album and stuff. And I'm going to start with Turnstiles. And if you can give us like a little insight or a little tidbit or something behind the scenes that maybe people don't know, and we can keep each album brief or whatever, but just give me an idea of what it was like to make Turnstiles first.
Well, the thing is that most people think, you know, the question I get all the time is, did you guys do anything, or did Billy come in and tell you what to do?
Yes.
No. Billy, sometimes, if we start an album, Turnstiles, whatever album it was, Billy might come in with maybe 2 songs that are complete, but he has a lot of ideas.
Okay.
And we'll play all these ideas. And if the band starts playing and starts creating stuff around those ideas, Billy will go home and finish and write a complete song.
Wow.
And then, so all the parts that you hear that the band is doing, we made up to complement Billy's songs, what he's written.
That is too awesome. I was wondering about that, if you guys were part of the creative process and if you guys got to really put your own, you know, little spin on things. I wasn't sure if you had everything written out, or you guys actually were part of that creative process, and it sounds like you certainly were.
Well, I don't know if you saw the film Get Back, that it was like a bunch of hours long, you know, just came out recently. Okay. And Paul McCartney even had more influence than Billy did when he came. You know, the band does their parts and stuff like that with the Beatles, but with us, we actually created those parts. You know, like the drum beat to Just the Way You Are, or you know, telling Billy, he would call me up at night sometimes and sing me a lyric. One was about his funeral. You know, he's witnessing his own funeral. Okay. And it was called "That Ain't You, Man," you know, because people are doing things, and he's like, "That's not me. I didn't do that," you know, something like that. I said, "You know what, Billy? That kind of sucks. But people don't want to know about your funeral and what's going to happen." He went, "I knew you were going to say that," and he came back the next day with a song called "Getting Closer" that was on the Bridge album. Okay. Changed all the words and everything, you know. So he would, you know, we talk about things like that, like, "What do you think I should do here?" I would remember some of his bits and pieces. Like we did the song Leningrad, and he kind of wrote that in the studio, and he was writing it and stuff like that. And he got to the end, and he went, "Till we came to Leningrad." I just stopped, and I said, "Billy, you got this piece that you play all the time. It goes dun 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 dun." I said, "What if we did it really slow now?" So I read, "Bum bum 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 bum," and that became the end of Leningrad.
Too cool.
It just fit perfectly.
Yeah, no, good job, good job. How long does the process take to put together an album, would you say, on average?
Oh, it's all different. Okay. Turnstiles was pretty quick because there wasn't a big budget, you know. But Innocent Man I think it was 5 weeks to do the basic tracks, just 5 weeks. But then Nylon Curtain took a year because he had his motorcycle accident in the middle of that.
Okay. I got you. So The Stranger, of course, 52nd Street, Glass Houses. Let's talk about An Innocent Man for a second, because that was a total departure from what you guys normally do. And of course, like you said, you were influenced by the Four Seasons and the Rascals and stuff. So it was kind of like a 50s doo-wop sound. And
Exactly.
did you guys anticipate that much success with An Innocent Man, Uptown Girl, Tell Her About It, Longest Time?
To quote Billy Joel after we got done with the album, was like, this was so much fun to make this record. It'll probably be a flop.
It's usually how it works, right?
Yeah.
The things that
Yeah.
you like most don't always, the public doesn't always like, but that was really good.
But that was a tip of the hat to the music that we grew up listening to. Like I said before the drums, before anything, just riding a bicycle, singing songs that you heard on the radio, Duke of Earl and all that kind of stuff.
Well, when I was on Magic 102.7, that's what we played, 50s and 60s music. And I really got into so much of that as well. I mean, that's just, and the amazing part, I did the all request show at night, and I'd have kids calling me up that were like 10, 11, 12 years old saying, can you play Wooly Bully by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs? Or can you do this? And my first question is, excuse me, how old are you? And I'm 11. Why are you listening to this radio station? It's fun music. We can sing along with it. There's no bad lyrics. And I thought, perfect answer. I couldn't have scripted it any better. It was just an innocent time in America, that's for sure.
Well, I have a 6-year-old, and we put the radio on, and my wife, we have Sirius radio now, of course, everybody listens to that. And my wife likes the 80s music, like her favorite band is U2, they're her Beatles. But there's sometimes they'll play other songs from that era, and there's lyrics. I see my wife running for the radio and pressing that 50s and 60s button just to be safe. It's so safe there, but it's so I remember I used to love listening to records. That's my thing. Even now is listening to music, not watching sports, nothing like that. Just listening to music. And I remember when me and my second wife were starting to fall apart and stuff. I said to her, she said to me, what are we going to do in the future? You don't do anything but listen to music. What are we just going to sit around and listen to records all the time? I said, well, you're killing my childhood dreams of what I heard on those records and how life should be,
Amen. No, I mean, it takes you back. And like I say, with simpler times, and music takes you away, man. It gives you a memory. It just is, like I say, it's a wonderful medicine for the people that really, really appreciate it. All right, let's talk a little bit about your situation with Billy. You guys were together for approximately 30 years or thereabouts. In 2006, kind of came to an abrupt halt, and it was really over a misunderstanding. And, Liberty, I can speak from myself as well that I've had issues with friends that I've had a really, really long time, and over the dumbest thing, there's no communication. It's like you get cut off and thrown to the curb, and it really is just so sad. But I know that you guys were able to get past it. He even wrote the foreword to your book. How did you resolve, if I could say it, how did you resolve things and be able to move on?
Well, like you said, the falling out was over a he said, she said thing, and me and Billy are both boneheaded, stubborn people. What should have happened was I should have gone to his house and stood in his driveway and stopped his car when he came out and said, what's going on? Or he should have called me and said, hey, I heard this thing that you may have said or, did or whatever. Is it true or not? But we're both the old, I don't care about this guy. Forget about him. Anyway, so I was laying in bed. That took 15 years of like just, when you had a girlfriend or an ex-wife or whatever, and you talk about a person or a dear friend, and you talk about this person because you had a falling out with them, and you just discussed it, and you talk about them in a negative way, and deep inside you're actually hurting because you still love this person and you were so close with this person, but you're just angry and you're just saying things. And that's how I felt every time we would do interviews and people would ask me about Billy, and he would do the same thing. I would hear interviews that he did, and like, oh, Lib didn't do anything for me, or I don't want to talk about that, stuff like that. But so I'm laying in bed one night, and I'm like, this has got to end. We got to bury this hatchet here. So I wrote him an email, and I said, I was a little disappointed at the way we ended. A lot of our friends are leaving this earth, and I would like to, talk to you. And I wrote at the end, I totally understand if you want to have nothing to do with this. And so he immediately wrote me back and goes, I was a little disappointed at how it ended too.
That's awesome.
So we came down to Florida with the Lords of 52nd Street, the band that I play with Richard Canada and Russell Javers. Yes. We do all the Billy Joel songs that we actually played on. Yep. And I said, I'll meet you for dinner. Now, I know that Billy had changed when he said that dinner's not good because that's when I put the girls to bed. He has 2 younger daughters now. Sure. So I said, how about breakfast the day I'm supposed to play? And he said, sure. So we met and we talked. Now, what was great was we didn't talk about what had happened or why it happened or anything like that. We just talked about old friends. We talked about, things. I went there with the attitude of like, look, Billy, I don't want the gig back. I just want my friend back. And sure. he was there saying like, I'm thinking about winding it down. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. So it was that kind of relationship, just a friend talking to a friend.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I mean, once you, like you said, you wrote the email and you said at the end, hey, if you don't want anything to do with this, I totally understand. You at least took the first step. And unfortunately, like I say, I'm dealing with a neighbor who, believe it or not, we resolved things after like 14 years, which was nothing short of a miracle. But then I have another friend that I've known for like 50 years that we're still having issues and stuff. But you know what? Just like you said, life is short, man. I don't know. Of course, Tina Turner just passing away and stuff. It's just, we're here for such a brief time on this earth. And it's like, you know what? I just want to get along with everybody. I want to just do the best that I can. And if I detect negativity or drama, I just say, hey, have a good day and move on. But I'm so happy that you guys resolve things. You guys were just so close for so long. So let's talk about your book now, if you don't mind. Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. I would imagine that had to be really, really good therapy for you to write it. And, to see your whole friendship come full circle. Billy wrote, like I said, the forward. Tell us about the writing process and putting it together.
Well, I started writing it as a family history for my girls, for my 4 daughters. And, that I got to interview my parents and my aunts. I started a long time ago to do this. But when me and Billy broke up, it's like a couple, which practically were. We just never slept with each other. But when we did the breakup came, I started to think like I could throw people under the bus, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah. I don't like that when people do that. It's kind of creepy. It's weird. It's a cheap way of getting people to buy your book because a lot of people like that crap. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself in Billy's shoes, and I'm going to look at why Billy does what he does. The man has had a career of about 50 years now.
Yeah.
When you have a career that long and you're in that kind of business, you have to make changes. And sometimes they're people, personnel that you have to change. So you don't mean to hurt these people, but in order for you to move on, you have to change.
Yeah, listen, we all have to evolve in life, man. Life is ever evolving. And I don't know, some days, the way the world's going these days, it really worries me a lot. But again, all we can do is control that person that we stare in the mirror at, and the rest is out of our hands. And as long as you have a good attitude and you just try and, be a contributing person in society, I think that's ahead of the game these days to say
exactly. You learn from other people. I'm nice to people when I meet them because of Dino Danelli. He was really nice to me.
That's cool.
He could see that I was a 15-year-old kid that wanted to do what he does,
Yeah. He definitely saw it in you and brought it out of you somewhat.
Yeah.
That's too cool. All right. So we were just talking roughly about when you do listen to music, because you're a big music lover and stuff. So if Liberty turns on the radio or has his music collection going, what are some of your favorite artists to listen to? And do you also listen to any contemporary artists? And if you do, what do you think of some of today's music? I think we kind of talked about that briefly, but go ahead.
Well, immediately go to the Beatles, of
Okay.
course, you know, and all that English invasion stuff, which I really love. But I'll go back to Dion. When people say, talk to me about playing drums, and I talk about, like, forget about that fancy stuff. Just listen to grooves, and I'll go to Rockin' Robin, the original Rockin' Robin. I'll go to The Wanderer by Dion. You know, that kind of stuff. The feel of those records is so great. I'll tell kids, like, you need to listen to something simple like AC/DC. You need to listen to Highway to Hell or whatever you want to listen to. And Phil Rudd is playing the most simplest drum beat that he could possibly play. But why do you feel so good while he's playing that simple beat? That's what you have to get. That's what you need to get, is to make it feel good.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'll use that as an example. The early 60s and 50s and 60s stuff, so simple, the drums.
Yeah.
But still creative back there.
Definitely. Well, I learned about that through my daughter's piano teacher, that she teaches her some classical along with pop and jazz and everything. And she says that really a lot of rock and roll and a lot of pop music is very simple type of music. I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but just it isn't as intricate, of course, as classical as we know. But it, like you say, it has that feel, it has that beat, it has that groove that you're just like, wow, I love this, and that's what, you know, sells, and that's what, you know, charts on the pop charts and stuff, right?
Yeah, like I wrote at the end of my book, you know, because the book it talks about the two roads that you could follow. You know, one is the great road of success, but there's always the dark side too.
Sure.
And if you're fortunate enough to get off that dark side, it's great. And at the end of the book, I talk about, like, I have a great life now with my family and kids and the band, the Lords and the Slim Kings, and it's just great. But sometimes when I get down, in my head, I will hear Paul McCartney's Count Off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it goes right.
I saw her standing there, right?
It's like, that's it for me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as far as contemporary artists, anyone out there you listen to, and what do you think of today's music briefly?
Well, you know, today's music is set for today's kids.
Okay.
You know, I mean, my mother always told me when you know, we started to not win the Grammys and stuff like that. My mother always said, you know, you had your shot. It was your turn. Now it's somebody else's turn. You know, it's always somebody else's turn.
This is true, man. There's always someone new coming out that's the biggest and best.
It's just the way it's recorded today that bothers me. It's sterile, very sterile, because it's on Pro Tools. You know, I could teach anybody to play a beat, and then you just loop it. And
right.
It's like,
Right. I'm 100% with you on that. You have a very nice resume, by the way, sir, as far as some of the people that you've played with in the past. Who are some of the artists that you have played with that you just have a lasting impression of doing work with, or that you've met, besides Dino Danelli, of course?
Well, my dear friend Billy J. Kramer, who was, you know, Billy J. Kramer in the Dakotas.
Bad to Me, right?
Bad to Me. The Beatles wrote his first 4 hit records. He had Do You Want to Know a Secret out in England before the Beatles actually recorded it. I Call Your Name was another one that he did before the Beatles did. You know, they wrote songs for him. So he's the closest that I'll ever get to the full Beatles. Okay. You know, and I love him dearly. But 2 of the people that I will never forget playing with, one is Paul McCartney in the studio,
big time.
recording 2 songs with him.
Wow.
Which was like, he walked into the room and it was like, he could have been like 3 feet off the ground. It's like, oh my God, it's this guy.
Right.
And of course, Ronnie Spector.
Yeah.
Ronnie Spector, she was just so great. So great. Not only as an artist, you know, she would tell me that, I love your foot. I love the way you play the bass drum. I love that. I love it. But also, when I was going through all the stuff with Billy, and I was playing with her, we would go in her dressing room and she would talk about, Phil Spector and how he treated her and how he'll pay one day, you know.
Yeah, that was nasty stuff back then.
Yeah, and she would say, I saw an interview with Billy, and he's gaining weight, he looked terrible, you know. So, you know, we got close, me and Ronnie, and I just loved her dearly.
Yeah, she was a great lady.
And then Felix. Then there was Felix.
Of course. Another fellow Italian. Hey. So listen, my buddy basically described drumming one time as like running a marathon. I mean, your hands are doing something, your feet are both feet are doing stuff, and I mean it's just nonstop. At the end of a show, are you just like totally exhausted?
Well, this is what I always say. I say, it used to be drugs, sex, and rock and roll.
Uh-huh.
Now it's 4 Advils, a Snickers bar, and icy hot.
Oh, I like that combination, man. Hey, listen, I'm up there too, brother. I'm taking the Advils and everything else, and yeah, we're not as young as we used to be, but I know it's a workout, and you seem to stay fit and you do a hell of a
Well,
job, my friend.
you got to stay healthy. I mean, my 6-year-old is keeping me alive by totally killing me, running around with her and stuff. She wants to do something all the time. She wants to be
Oh yeah,
tickled. She wants.
yeah.
But also eating right. I don't eat meat. I try to stay away from dairy. Um,
Good for you.
take vitamins and stuff. No smoking, no drinking, none of that stuff.
Well, you're doing better than me, my friend. I was in the hospital for 40 days last year with diverticulitis, and I haven't really learned much. I'm still eating all the crap, but I'm hoping to get my act together here sometime in the near future. As far as your 4 daughters, okay, we know Tori is an actress and a model, and the other daughters, I don't know their names. I apologize, but did they pursue any music? And then, as far as your most recent daughter, how is it raising a daughter now compared to what it was like raising your previous 3 daughters?
All right. Well, the older girls, Tori, Devin, and Marielle. Tori, is an actress, and she also plays violin. She was the first one to grasp an instrument when she came to rehearsal when we were doing the Stormfront tour, and we played the Downeaster Alexa, and we had this woman uh, who played violin, and Tori saw that when she was like about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, and she said, "I want to play that music." So she still plays it. She's actually played it on a couple of TV shows in Chicago Med. She played it during the show. Devin, my oldest, she was in a punk band for a long time, playing bass guitar.
Okay, cool.
But now she's a pediatric nurse in Philadelphia.
Superhero as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and Marielle, my youngest of those three, she just had my first grandchild. She was doing stuff. She was on the road with Fleetwood Mac, doing the dressing rooms and cutting everybody's hair and stuff. So they're all in the music thing.
Okay.
And the little one loved the Beatles. I mean, her favorite songs though are like "Roll Over Beethoven," "Hey Bulldog,"
Right.
those kind of things. And then one day I played her "Surfing USA" by the Beach Boys. She lost it,
That is too cool.
especially during the guitar solo.
Hey, Liberty, real quick. I think I only have 45 minutes here. So if it ends, can I send you another link to continue this? There's only a couple more questions I have in case
Okay.
like we get cut off.